Why did humans start wearing clothes? Most people assume the answer is simple: modesty, warmth, protection. The real answer is far stranger than that. Anatomically, modern humans have existed for about 300,000 years. Evidence of clothing doesn't appear until much later. Bone needles, hide scraping tools, first showing up somewhere between 120,000 and 75,000 years ago. That's an enormous gap, half our entire existence, unaccounted for. So what were humans doing during all that missing time? For the first half of our existence, we lived completely naked, and mostly in warm, tropical climates. If warmth was the answer, that timeline doesn't add up. If protection was the answer, something else doesn't add up either. Think about which body parts actually need protecting most. Hands, feet, the most exposed, most vulnerable parts. But early clothing didn't prioritize those areas at all. It covered the torso first. That's a serious clue something else was going on. So scientists needed a completely different kind of evidence. And they found it in an unlikely place: lice. Head lice and body lice are genetically related. But body lice can only survive if clothing exists. By studying exactly when these two lice types split apart genetically, researchers could estimate when clothing actually became consistent. Their answer: roughly 170,000 years ago. Not warmth, not protection, a specific evolutionary fork, driven by fabric. That number alone reframes the entire question. Because 170,000 years ago wasn't a particularly cold period everywhere. So why that specific moment? The answer might not be practical at all. It might be symbolic. Making clothing requires something remarkable: imagining a future version of yourself. Not reacting to cold right now, planning for cold that hasn't happened yet. That requires genuine forward planning. Preparing materials, executing a multi-step plan, before the need is even present. Almost no other animal does this. This wasn't just a tool, it was a cognitive leap. Evidence of a mind capable of imagining itself in a future it hasn't lived yet. But there's an even stranger layer underneath all of this. Some evolutionary biologists point towards something psychological. A sense of being watched, being perceived. Something close to an early form of shame. Not shame in the modern sense, something more foundational. The awareness that your body exists in someone else's eyes, not just your own. Scientists call this capacity theory of mind. The ability to imagine how you appear from outside yourself. Once early humans developed that awareness, something shifted. Suddenly, your body wasn't just yours, it was also observed. And once you know you're being observed, you can choose how to be seen. That single shift may be the real starting point for clothing. Not staying warm, being seen, deliberately, on your own terms. As human groups grew larger, this idea grew more powerful. Small bands eventually became larger tribes. And larger tribes needed a way to organize themselves. Social hierarchies began to form. Leaders, skilled hunters, elders, newcomers. And clothing became something unexpected, a form of communication. Instant communication, before a single word was ever spoken. A specific pattern, a specific material, a specific way of wearing something, could instantly signal who you were, which group you belonged to, what role you held within it. Strangers could read all of this at a glance. No conversation required, just observation. Clothing had quietly become a form of social technology. A visible, wearable identity, worn directly on the body. This is a strange thing to fully sit with. What began as an abstract cognitive leap became a practical social tool, not because anyone planned it that way from the start, but because once humans could imagine being seen, they used that constantly. Every choice of clothing became a small, deliberate statement. Fast forward to today, and almost nothing about this has changed. You still choose your clothes with real intention, sometimes without even realizing you're doing it. Think about the last time you felt anxious getting dressed. Worried about being overdressed, worried about being underdressed. That specific anxiety has a name in psychology: social evaluation. But the deeper root of it goes back much, much further. All the way back to that 170,000-year-old shift. The exact moment humans first understood they could be watched. And first understood they had some control over how that watching went. When you pick an outfit today, you're not just choosing fabric. You're tapping into one of the oldest instincts our species ever developed. Choosing, deliberately, how you want the world to see you. That instinct predates language, predates writing, predates almost everything else. It's older than most of what we consider modern human culture. And it's been running quietly in the background this entire time. So the next time you stand in front of a mirror, deciding what to wear, you're not doing something trivial. You're participating in a 170,000-year-old evolutionary habit. One that has nothing to do with staying warm. and everything to do with being seen exactly the way you choose. Let's walk back through exactly how we got here. It started with a gap 300,000 years, and no clothing evidence. Then 120,000 years passed, still nothing. Then, finally, needles scrapers the first physical signs. But the real evidence wasn't physical at all, it was genetic. Lice, quietly recording a hidden timeline inside their own DNA. A timeline pointing to 170,000 years ago, not a single day earlier. That number didn't align with any major climate shift, which meant the explanation had to be something else entirely. Not the weather outside, something happening inside the mind. The ability to imagine a future self. The ability to imagine being watched by someone else. Two enormous cognitive leaps, arriving together. And from those two leaps, everything else followed. Groups grew larger, identity needed a visible marker. Clothing filled that role perfectly. Not because it was warm, because it was legible. A stranger could read it instantly, without a single spoken word. That's an extraordinary amount of information, carried on fabric alone. And that exact function never really went away. It just got quieter, more automatic, more unconscious over time. You don't consciously think I am signaling my identity every morning. But that's functionally, biologically, exactly what's happening. Every outfit is a small act of self-presentation, rooted in an instinct older than almost anything else about us. So modesty wasn't the beginning, warmth wasn't the beginning. The beginning was a mind learning it could be seen, and choosing, deliberately, what that seeing would show. That's the real reason humans started wearing clothes. Not survival in the simplest sense. Something closer to the birth of self-presentation itself. A moment when biology and psychology quietly merged into fabric. Every needle, every scraped hide, every stitch, carried forward a single evolving idea. I know I am seen and I choose how. That idea never stopped evolving. It simply changed its materials, its patterns, its meanings, over time. From simple draped hides to complex layered garments. From small tribal signals to entire global fashion industries. The function stayed remarkably consistent the whole way through. Identity, belonging, status, intention. All communicated instantly, before anyone says a word. It's worth remembering this the next time you feel judged by an outfit. Or judge someone else by theirs, even briefly. That reaction isn't shallow, it's ancient. It's wired in from a cognitive leap 170,000 years in the making. Humans didn't invent clothing to survive the cold. We invented it to survive something else entirely. The discovery that we exist inside other people's perception. And clothing became our very first answer to that discovery. A wearable response to being watched. Refined, again and again, for hundreds of thousands of years. Still running, quietly, every single morning. Every time you